Hi guys, so welcome back to my tutorials. In today's tutorial, we're going to see how we can create that card that is listed on top using HTML and CSS. So let's get started. The very first thing that we are going to do is to link our CSS file. The CSS file, as you can see, it's empty. So we are going to link that by writing in the head tag link CSS, and then you can see we are linking a style sheet, and the href is the style.css, which corresponds to the style.css file. All right. And then after that, on the body, so we are going to start creating this card. So we can create a div with a class of card. Inside the div, as always, let's wrap this thumbnail inside a div because we don't want to style the image directly. So we can use the div. So we can create a div and call it image wrapper. And then inside the image wrapper is where we create the image. So look for an image that you can use, but if you need this exact image, head over to my GitHub repository. And then, so it's github.com/TechWithTwin/TikTok-projects. You can also see the file name here and my username. All right, so you can see my username there. And then look for a project called Portfolio V1. So let's look for portfolio. This one is the Portfolio V1. And then you'll see the thumbnail there. So go ahead and copy that, and then let's continue. So I'm just going to drag that image to my working directory. So drag that, and then we just reference it from our image. So just do thumb.jpg. You can also add an alt. Maybe I can say place the image. And then after adding the wrapper, the next thing you're going to add is this content. As you can see, this content is away from this container. So we need to create a new div. So you can say dot content. Then inside the content, let's create a heading. So this is the heading that shows up here. Just copy these and paste that in. And then the next thing you're going to create is the paragraph. This is the description. Just copy that and paste that in. And finally, we're going to create this button with the learn more symbol. We can just say button and say learn. And that's it for our HTML. Let's now jump into the CSS. And before that, let me go live. So as you can go live, you can see that the image is too big. So you can see how the image is too big. So we can go to the HTML, look for the image and minimize its width. So we can give it a width of something like 250 pixels. Then you can see now everything looks as it should. So the next thing we are going to do, let's jump into the CSS file. And we always write the default CSS styles, which is a margin of 0, padding of 0, box sizing of border box. These are just basic init CSS styles. You remove the margins from all the elements. This is the everything selector. This selects every element in the DOM. And then it also removes all the paddings, and then it adds this property known as box sizing border box. As we said, box sizing border box helps make sure that the width and the height you give to elements are fixed heights. So if I say a height of 200 pixels and I add padding to that element, I don't want that element to increase its width, so like 210, but I want it to constrict the padding inside the content so that my width remains as we expect. So the very next thing is that let's now grab the body. So on the body, what we normally do is to add some paddings to them. This is not a must, but why I do that is because I want my content to be away from the edges, as you can see. And the next thing is that we need to place this content to the middle. So we just use flex. So we can say display flex and justify content to the center. So it doesn't justify because this card does not have a fixed width. So let's go and grab the card and give it a fixed width of 350 pixels. And now you can see the card pushes itself to the middle because initially the card was taking up the full width, but now since it's taking 350 pixels, then that's very okay. The next thing is that we have two fonts to add. So on the finished version, you can see we have two fonts. So the topmost font, this one is called, so the topmost font is called Mandrop, and this one is called Poppins. So you're just going to fonts.google.com, go to that URL and search for Mandrop. This is the font you want, and then on the bottom you'll see a button that says get font. So you click that, and then we are not done. Let's add a new font. We want to add Poppins. We just grab the Poppins. Don't worry about the Portuguese. You can write your own text, and you could see here. We also get the font Poppins. So you click get font as well. Now after getting the font, we can get the embed code. And before I get the embed code, there are some styles I need to remove here. I don't want all the font weights in the Poppins font. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to remove the fonts that I'm not willing to use. So let's first remove every font, and we are left with just 400. The next font I want is the 500. And finally the 600. I don't want the italics. I don't want all the others. And then, so let's see. Yeah, we have that. And then finally, let's click on the import. And then let's copy this and paste it in our styles.css file. Okay, that's done. So let's go back to our card and then let's continue styling this. So the very next thing we are going to do is that we have styled the body. We are going to add a primary variable color. So I'm going to say primary. This is a bluish color. Then I'll say hash 290 B50. This is the color we are going to be using. And then inside the card, let's add some border. We can say border 0.8 pixels solid. Then let's give it the primary color. And then you can see the border. The next thing is that now you can see the content is too close to the edges. Let's add a padding of 0.8 rem. All right, and the reason I added the border is that on the finished version, you can see there is a border. So on our version, let's add a border radius to the card. So you can say border radius, let's use 5 pixels. Right, you can see now the edges are very fine. Okay, so to continue, let's make sure we can add some gaps between these elements. So what we can do is that we can display flex on the card. So we can display flex there. And then gap of maybe 0.3 rem. Then let's say flex direction of column. So a flex direction of column. All right, you can see some gaps have been added. So the next thing we need to do is to now align these items to the center. On the finished version, you can see everything is in the middle. So we can do align items to the center. And then let's text align as well. So text align the center. And also remember, we have two elements inside this container. We have the image wrapper and the content. And if you go here, you can see we have the content. This is the image wrapper and the content. So we need to now grab the content and give it some styles. So let's grab the content. We can say content. We can display flex to the content as well because we want to add some spaces between this heading, the paragraph, and the button. Then flex direction as always, column. And then a gap of maybe 0.4 rem. Right. I think that's okay. The very next thing we need now is that On the finished version, you can see that this content is squeezed to the middle a little bit. So how we can do that, we can use widths. So I can give this a width of 95%. And because it was aligned in the middle, then the width of this element will be pushed 2.5% to the left, 2.5% on the right. Okay. Yeah. So the next thing we can grab is the image wrapper. And what we want to do here is that we want to fix a width of this container. We can use a height of maybe 17 rem. Okay. And then we can give it a width of 100%. And then let's now grab the image. The image is inside the image wrapper. So we can say, and then the image, let's do a width of 100%. Okay, you can see it. It is overflowing. So you can go to the image wrapper and say overflow hidden. Okay. The next thing, let's add a height of, I think that looks nice, but let's make sure it covers the full space. So you can give it a height of 100%. Like that. And an object fit. You can see how squeezed it is. So we use object fit of cover. All right. You can see it aligning itself. And then let's add a border radius to the image wrapper. So you can say border radius of 5 pixels. Okay, you can see now it is taking shape. The next thing, let's go back to the body and add the font family to the everything to be Poppins, and then a fallback of sans serif. Right, so you can see now it is taking a lot of space. The next thing we need to work on is now the paragraph. This is the description. It's inside the content div. So what we can do is content and then the paragraph. Let's reduce the font size 0.75 rem. Right, you can see it looks a bit nice now. All right. So finally, let's grab this heading. The heading is too large. So it's still in the content div h2. And then what we can do now, so we have it inside the content. You can see the content and then we have the heading level 2. And I can use the direct child selector to make sure that this one will only match any h2 that is a child of the content. Any subchild won't be selected. Let's reduce its font size to 1.4 rem. So I think that was even the initial font size, so 1.3. So the dot content direct child h2. I think not a lot that is changing. So the best thing we want to work on here, let's reduce its font weight to 600. So that is not showing. So let's see. Before we continue, let's resize this. Let's add the font family that we wanted for the headings, which is manrope, and then a fallback of sans serif. All right, so that one is working. So why am I getting the manrope? We imported manrope here on top. You can see this. And then let's reduce the font size to maybe 1 rem. Oh, I had to use font size, not font family. So 1.4 was okay. All right, guys. So we have tackled the heading, the description. Let's now go to the button. So this button on the finished version, you can see it has a purplish color, and then this text is a bit thin. So what we are going to do is to grab the button. Then after grabbing the button, let's now add a background color of hash C8 BB CEC. Right? The next thing is to remove the border. You can see the border is very ugly, so just do border none. The next thing is to add some paddings. We add 7 pixels, 12 pixels horizontal, so 7 pixels is vertical. You can see it. And then we want this to be just in the middle, so we can align self to the center. You can see it like that. And then let's increase the font size to something like 0.8 rem. All right. The next thing, let's thin the font weight. So let's use font weight of 300. This one is not respecting, which should tell you that this button is not respecting the font family. So we can say font family, and then we say inherit. Then you can see now this one is a bit thin. So let's also add some border radius of like 15 pixels. Okay, so that looks a bit nice. And then, so what is remaining is the gap in the card. So let's increase the gap to 0.6 rem. And that's it, guys. That's how you can create such a beautiful card using HTML and CSS. Thank you for watching. And if in case you have reached to this end, make sure you like and leave a comment. So, and also share with your friends. Thank you.